Welcome to the 74th episode of the New Ventures podcast. I'm your host, Sanjoy Sanyal, the founder of Regain Paradise, a boutique climate finance firm and a visiting fellow at the Cambridge Judge Business School. Along with my co-host, Professor Jaideep Prabhu, we try and understand the links between climate change and food security in these series of conversations.
Hi, I'm Jaideep Prabhu. I am a professor of marketing at Cambridge Judge Business School. My area of research is innovation, and more particularly frugal innovation, how to do more and better with less. And through that research, I've become interested in innovation in food security, and issues to do with climate change. I'm delighted to be joining Sanjoy on this podcast.
Our guest for today is Angga Maulana Yusuf, an agriculture specialist in Preferred by Nature and a lead project manager in the Swiss Asia Low Carbon Rice Project. Welcome, Angga.
Thank you, Sanjoy. Thank you, Jaideep. It's my pleasure to be here.
Angga, could you start by telling us a bit about your organization, Preferred by Nature?
Yes, thank you, Jaideep. So, Preferred by Nature, it's international NGO or non-profit organization. Mostly we are interested to work with farmers, foresters, and also involved in some business case, including the government, and also work with other NGO to support better land management and also business practice that we hope it can benefit people, nature, and climate. And we work in around 100 countries, and we do this initiative through, you can say, a unique combination of sustainability certification services, project supporting, awareness raising campaign, and other capacity activities. And Preferred by Nature, or sometimes we call it PBN in short. It was founded in 1994 by a small group of NGO in Aarhus, Denmark. In the beginning, we focus on sustainable forest management. And now this year, we're coming to our 30 years anniversary. We work in, like I say, 100 countries. We have quite a number of staff. Now we are currently focused on forestry, agriculture, and also travels. We focus on some commodities like we're going to discuss this afternoon is rice. We also work with timber, coffee, cocoa, palm oil, soybean, rubber, biomass, and also cattle. That's a short introduction of Preferred by Nature.
That is lovely, Angga. And would you like to introduce yourself to our audience as well?
Yes, thank you, Sanjoy. Yes, hello everyone who joining this podcast. You can call me Angga. I'm from Indonesia. I was born in Bandung, West Java. So I have educational background in agriculture engineering in Pajajaran University in Bandung. And I start my professional career in 2007 working for palm oil company. Spent 3 years there, and then I moved to Java where I work with local certification body since 2010. So this is my first involvement in the sustainability standard, sustainable agriculture issue, a climate issue, a fair trade issue. So during my work with local certification body, I do some audit, especially for organic agriculture standard of Indonesia, EU organic standard, USDA, NOP organic standard, Japan organic standard, and do some fair trade audit also. During my work, initial involvement with the Preferred by Nature, or before the name is NEPCON. After that, I also work with NEPCON doing audit for them under Rainforest Alliance Sustainable Agriculture Standard Scheme, mostly for coffee, cacao, and tea. and I do the audit in Indonesia, in some countries in Southeast Asia also. And during that time, I was worked as a consultant for NEPCON, or Preferred by Nature, the name now. And on August 2021, I joined Preferred by Nature as their full-time staff. And then after some time, I moved to a project division. And now my current role in the project division as lead project manager for the EU Switch Asia low carbon rice.
So, Angga, thanks for that. Can you tell us a little bit more about rice cultivation in particular? How is it being impacted by climate change? What is the water use? How are you dealing with methane emissions? Give us some context.
Thank you, Jaideep. This is an interesting situation. So what we know so far, that the rice cultivation is the one who contribute to the greenhouse gas emission, but it's also the one who been impacted by the climate change. We know that the trend of climate change, global warming, and the impact of this to the productivity have been known with some research or study that have been conducted. For example, according to the IPCC, International Government Panel on Climate Change, mentioned in their that the climate change and extreme climate event is affecting the crop yield is like a common impact of this climate change. And I also want to highlight some, interesting research that it mentioned that the increase of temperature 1% can reduce the yield of the global rice by 3.4 to 10.9%.
I think the general understanding that by the end of the century, under high emission scenarios, that rice cultivation would be impacted is probably well understood. Question that we probably want to probe a little bit in is, what is it that is happening in Indonesia?
We found so far in this project during our first year that mostly the rice managed by small farmers, and they still relying on the agrochemicals, synthetic agrochemicals, and also synthetic pesticide, for example. There is a limited knowledge how to do water management during the rice cultivations. And in terms of greenhouse gas, these practices that lead to the higher greenhouse gas emission, especially in the rice cultivation.
I understand that, but I was looking at the agricultural statistics for Indonesia. Indonesia is obviously wants to expand its exports of rice. Even during this current El Nino, the debate as to whether the country needed to import rice at all. Are these impacts already being felt, or they're still very much in the future?
Yes, first of all, if we see the data from the National Statistic Bureau, that there is a gap between the rice production and the rice consumption, where the rice consumption is slightly higher than the rice production. That's also one of the reason why the governments think to import rice to Indonesia. And yes, we're aware that Indonesia is considered, if I'm not wrong, is the third largest rice production countries. But with that statistic, there's a situation, there are a season that we produce rice is lower than the demand or the consumption of the people. In Indonesia, rice is a staple food. We eat rice 2 until 3 times a day. We even consider that you're not having a meal if you not yet eat rice. I think that's the common meals in Indonesia.
I'm going to probe this a little bit more because you are actually working on the field, right? So It's one thing to hear from you and completely another thing to read the IPCC reports. We had on our podcast recently from Bangladesh, very similar. He also said the same thing, that the plate of rice is the full meal, actually. And I'm just going to ask you that because of the heavy use of agrochemicals and chemical pesticides in the regions that you're working in, do you see, for example, yields falling? Are there issues of groundwater depletion? What are the practical issues? Give us a sense of that.
Yes, just to give a little bit context that specifically in the low carbon rice, we are working with the small rice millers and try to link them with the farmers. There are some situations that the small rice miller having difficulty in having a rice paddy to be milled in their processing unit. There are certain reasons for this. For example, that the rice production is lower than the previous harvest, or there are some business competition also. When we try to talk with the farmers, what actually caused the rice production can be lower than the previous harvest. There are actually many factors in what we found from the farmers. For example, the quality of the seeds, and other they having difficulty to find fertilizer, even subsidized fertilizer from the government. It's now unlimited. Another issue is related to the availability of water. They experience some shift in the rain season. So when they told me that usually this particular month, we have enough rain, we have enough sun, and now the same month compared to last harvest season, compared to last year specifically, there's something changed. We have a lot of rain in some certain area. The rice field is flooded. That's why we cannot have a good harvest. The harvest is lower. And in some area having the different situation, they having a drought where the water should be available, now less water, and then they cannot plant rice. Even they want to plant rice paddy, it will not grow well. And this situation also creating when most of the farmers in that area doesn't planting paddy in the same time, so the pest infestation is increased because, for example, there is two neighboring farmers before they planting paddy in the same time. Pest is there, but it's not really impact their yield in terms of economical thresholds. But since this season, his neighbor planting other crops like a corn or vegetables, while the other neighbor still planting paddy, and then it create the pest is infest the neighbor who planting paddy. It caused the yield to really drop. And in some situation, they cannot, in terms of economic threshold, they will get a loss if they harvest the paddy.
Angga, could you tell us a bit more about the low carbon project?
Yes, so the name of the project, they are me and the team working on to reduce the climate impact in rice production in Indonesia, especially in the small and medium enterprise. In this case, is small rice millers. The project is funded by EU under the Switch Asia Grant Program. And this is a 3 years project with budget for this project is around 2.6 million starting in 2022 and ended in this year, 2024. And Preferred by Nature as the lead organization in this low carbon rice project. And we work with two local organizations. The first one is we call Rice Miller and Rice Trader Association in Indonesia. We call it a PERPADI in short. This is a national level organization that as all the rice miller in Indonesia will be under PERPADI. And other local partners is People Coalition for Food Sovereignty, or we call it KRKP. This NGO is mostly work with food safety issue, work with farmers, and also work with mainly in advocacy level. This low carbon rice project, the project area in two provinces, in Central Java and also in East Java. In Central Java, we work in three districts, Boyolali, Sragen, and Klaten. While in East Java, we work in two districts, in Madiun and Rawi.
One thing that I wanted to understand a little bit is that you are trying to help farmers, and this is part of your experiences also in your previous to Preferred by Nature, in getting certified on the sustainable rice platform, right? I don't understand what that means. Could you help us understand it?
Yes, one of the outcome of this project that we want to improve the sustainable rice practices from farm until consumer. Along the project, that we know that in global level, we know there is a sustainable rice platform. Sustainable rice platform, we can say that it's a non-profit global multi-stakeholders alliance. So far, it consists of 100 institutional members. It consists of public, private, research, civil society also, and financial sectors. And they also have similar mission that link with this project, especially in reducing environmental and climate footprints, to protect this biodiversity and planet. This sustainable rice platform, as SRP, develop sustainable rice cultivation standards. The standard is based on the research. In the beginning, they also work with IRI and also with UNEP in the beginning of the development. Again, they develop a sustainable cultivation standard, and it can be adopted everywhere in the world with different kind of situation, different kind of cultivation approach, and they also call it SRP assurance scheme, where it have requirements how to be SRP verified rice.
So this platform worked with UNEP, which is the United Nations Environmental Program. They also worked with IRI. What is IRI?
International Rice Research Institute.
Okay, that's of course a very well-known organization. When you talk about standards, what do you mean by standards? What do this prescribe? For example, rice cultivation in Java might be different from other provinces in Indonesia. Are there ways to adapt the standards to different regions, maybe even different countries? Help us understand what the standards mean.
Yeah, we call it the SRP cultivation standards. So it consists of 41 requirement. It's cover like farm management, integrated pest management, also have requirement on harvesting, on post-harvesting, and this cultivation standard have the system is in each requirement, they have several criteria and requirements, and it's not compliance of or not compliance, but it based on the scoring. For example, if we talk the first criteria, let's talk about crop calendar. So it have like certain criteria. If the farmers have crop calendar before each planting season, the farmer have crop calendars and get like a higher points. But if farmers doesn't have a crop calendar, then you have a lower points. It's also similar in the cultivation. If the farmer have adopt an organic agriculture, they are not using any synthetic agrochemical or synthetic fertilizer, then they will get higher points. Or if farmers start to use organic fertilizer, then also have a certain point. But if farmers not yet adopt organic agriculture, but already implement good cultivation practices, when they apply fertilizer or when they apply pesticide, it's based on we say early warning system. It's based on the monitoring. It's based on the need of the soil for the farmer to put any fertilizer, based on how much is the pest infestation.
So you have, farmers can adopt organic practices which do not require chemical fertilizers, or they can use fertilizers based on only triggers. How does this certification help a farmer?
Okay. So the SRP is using the term verification. If, for example, we have a farmers and want to sell their rice as SRP verified rice, they want to put the label SRP verified rice on the consumer pack rice. These farmers need to follow SRP cultivation standards to produce the rice paddy that meet the SRP cultivation standards. But it not stop there. Farmers produce rice paddy, but the one who produce rice that we eat is the rice millers. So the farmers need to work with the rice millers, and these rice millers need to implement another standard. It called SRP chain of custody standard. It's mostly to make sure the integrity and the traceability of rice that deliver to the end consumer. When the farmers get a good score on cultivation standard, and the rice miller have compliance with all requirement in the SRP chain of custody standard, and then they also need to follow some brands and logo requirement. They can put SRP verified rice in their end product that will be purchased by the consumer.
How does it help me?
In terms of based on SRP study in Thailand, when the farmers adopt fashion standards, it can, reduce the production costs compared to conventional method. And it can reduce the use of fertilizer. It can reduce the use of water. And in some case, since the farmers reduce the cost of production, it can improve 10% of higher net income. The thing is, the SRP is not regulate the price of the SRP verified rice. So it doesn't state that if you put the stamp SRP verified rice, the rice will be higher than the other rice. So the price is basically based on the market situation, based on the agreement with your consumer. But what I know that, for example, in Pakistan, where most of the rice is exported, and there are situations that the rice with SRP verified label is the price is higher than the one without SRP verified label.
Angga, I was going to ask you about how this project got started. How did you find partners? Tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, basically we know this about we work with other sustainable project before, I think in 2021, when we know there is a call for proposal from Switch Asia, and now we are looking for partners that could help us with capturing the rice sectors in Indonesia. And then we contact them, these two partners, and we start discussing how to improve the situation in Indonesia related to the sustainable rice. The Swiss Asia actually doesn't specify if the commodity should be rice. But like I mentioned before, I think from the preferred by nature management, since we already work on the SRP verification, we know that there is a real impact in the rice sectors.
Yeah. So, Angga, tell us a little bit about what was in it for the industrial organization.
So if price is complex things in Indonesia, even the government regulate the price. So we need partners that understand how is the government work and have direct networking with the rice millers across Indonesia. That's one of the reason why we work with PERPADI, the Rice Millers and Rice Trader Association in Indonesia. And along this project is in line with their mission to revitalize small rice millers, because in Indonesia, around 95% of the millers is considered as a small rice millers, and where they have still traditional management, still using diesel fuel, not aware of the losses, not efficient, not to mention the traceability of the price itself. By involved in this low carbon rice project, we give to PERPADI, we give technical assistance to these small rice millers so they can improve how they manage their business, how to also link with some other private sector or government, and also link with the market. Some of the interesting thing that happening during this project, that before they are not really eager to switch from diesel fuel to electricity because they think it's too difficult, too many requirements, it's costly. But after we talk with the national electric company, fortunately they willing to help us by shortening the registration process, by working directly with the rice miller. So for them it can save costs by giving another option so they can install the electricity in their milling facility. And so far, out of 150 small rice millers, around 30 of them have switched to electricity. And even in the beginning, the investment is quite high, but from what they told me, it's a worth investment. They are more efficient. They could, it's more easy for them to improve the rice quality, and in the end, it market opportunity after they switch to electricity. So this low carbon rice project in a way help this trader association to also fulfill their mission in revitalize the small rice millers.
That's very interesting, the way you're talking about millers switching from diesel to electricity, because that obviously reduces emission also, but it increases profits of the millers who are small and medium enterprises. I think you've talked about how you started the project and, the partnerships that you built up. Tell us a little bit about the activities that you've done in the project. How have you promoted this among the farmers? How have you engaged with the millers? Give us the story.
Okay, the main beneficiaries of this low carbon rice project is the small rice miller. In the rice supply chains, they are sitting in the middle. They are between the farmers, and they also link with other private sector and link with the consumers. What we understand so far, most of the project that happening working on the farmers level. They are work on do a capacity building in the cultivation standards, how to improve the yield. But they are really low or even no engagement with the small rice miller, even with the market itself. That's why in the low carbon rice, we work with the small rice millers. When we can convince them to improve their efficiency, their product, and they convinced to a more clean energy, to more sustainable rice practices, we hope this small rice miller can also influence the farmers to follow the same approach. Another actors that important in Indonesia, like I mentioned before, is the government, because rice in Indonesia is it's an important product, and government have regulated. So that's why you also need to work with the government. In short, we have 4 main activities. First is to do the advocacy to the local government in 5 districts, Boyolali, Klaten, Sragen, Madiun, and Ngawi. And we also need to do advocacy in the national level, how the policy that's made by this local government and national government can support the adoption of sustainable rice in Indonesia. Another activity is we need all the stakeholders in rice sector in Indonesia to work together. That's why in the second activity, we want to develop a multi-stakeholder forum that mainly focus on sustainable rice development in Indonesia. And now we call it in the national level, we have Sustainable Rice Platform National Working Group. The aim is to promote SRP in Indonesia, and also to help develop SRP National Interpretation Guideline. Which SRP National Interpretation Guideline is the adoption of SRP cultivation standard with regards to the local context. So it's more, we hope it more easy to understand by the farmer or any rice sector in Indonesia to adopt SRP cultivation standard. The third activity is opening market access with regards to the sustainable rice. We try to link with especially the hot cafe who serve rice in their menu. We try to link our rice millers with this Horeca industry. And that's the third relating the market access. And the fourth is we want to improve the financial access for the small rice millers. Like I mentioned before, that one of the aim is how to improve, how to revitalize the small rice millers, but they have barrier to access the government loan or even to access a commercial loan due to the complex requirement and complex procedure.
So, Angga, can you tell us a little bit about what are the results you're seeing from this project?
Yeah, first in rice millers, I think what we've seen so far, they switch from diesel fuel to electricity. In our study, it can reduce the GSG emission in the rice miller level because this contributes to around 85% of GSG emission in the miller level. So in time, after they switch, we can reduce the GSG emission. And other impact in this project that the millers now records the processing, record where they get the rice husk coming from, and they record where they sold the rice. It's a good start when we want to develop sustainable rice traceability in the millers. Other thing is before it's kind of difficult to have a collaboration between farmers and millers. But now along this project, now our farmers and millers are willing to work together. From the millers, they need the farmers to supply them with the rice husk, with the agri quality, with the agri quantity, and the farmers have like assurance on who will purchase their rice husk. So the farmers and miller collaboration is something that we think is an impact of this project. Another part is from the market part. So, but it's still ongoing process. We start to approach with the market, and now one of the restaurant in Semarang, we call it in Central Java province, is interesting to purchase the rice coming from the small rice miller. So it's opening the door market for the small rice millers. And I think in terms of advocacy, we successfully established Sustainable Rice Platform National Working Group, consists of private sectors, NGO, government institution. That with this national working group, we hope that the advocacy on sustainable rice is going to be more stronger than before.
Yeah, what is interesting in this, in Angga, and what you're describing is the focus on the millers. As I said earlier, we've had a podcast with BRAC, which is the world's largest NGO, and they have been working in Bangladesh. The problem they have is somewhat similar: falling soil fertility, drought conditions, changing weather conditions, and so on and so forth. The focus there is on the farmer. But as you are talking, it is becoming obvious to me that the millers, these are small organizations, these are micro-organizations, many of them, in the overall scheme of things. They have a strong influence in what the farmers do and the agricultural practices that the farmers follow. I think by focusing on this commercial and sector, as Jaideep says, you probably have a levers to be able to make a more substantial impact in the agricultural and especially the rice value chain. And that's, to me, very interesting. It's very different from what we have heard other guests on the series speak about.
Yes, Sanjay, I watched that podcast. It's an interesting discussion, and you are right. I think based on our experience in other PBN project or what we do, one of the keys is to put the farmers, private sectors on board because they have the resource, they have the market. If they tap, mostly government willing to listen. When we tap to the financial institution, for sure they are willing to listen.
So, Angga, I work a lot on frugal innovation. I'm interested in how much things cost. So, how much are you getting from the EU share grant? How long will the funding
Yeah.
last? What will you do after the funding runs out?
Yes, yeah, like mentioned before, the total funding actually based on the contract is 2.6 million. But apart from that, we need to cover 20% as co-finance. That's the setup. So for example, every 100 euros you spend, so EU for 80 euros, and the project will cover 20 euros of any spending in this project. So this 2.6 million is for 3 years. And it start in 2022, and this year is the third years of this low carbon rice project. And what happened when this project end? That's also one of the reason why we established SRP National Working Group. So we somehow want to arrange also a capacity building for this working group, getting they know more about SRP, and we will plan to do a field visit to, we hope, to other countries, Vietnam, Thailand, maybe, to see how the SRP will works. We also want to invite government to do this field study. And then hopefully by doing that, this project and this SRP National Working Group will continue the work into the advocacy, capacity building for the millers, including market access to the farmers, to the millers also. Another things that we try to make it happen, the collaboration, the business relation between farmers, millers, and the industry or private sectors. Now we want to start with some restaurant in Semarang, Central Java. So during this project, we want to somehow millers have business agreement, for example, with this restaurant to purchase amount of the rice miller every month with the amount of quantity. So by doing that, hopefully after this project ends, this collaboration still happening in the field.
One of the things that I wanted to ask you is about the millers in order to make the changes that they have to make, which is, and you referred to this earlier, they have to make upfront expenditure, right? You've kind of touched upon it earlier, but I want to understand more. Do they have access to banks, loans? Can they make the investments of their own money? Tell us a little bit about how they are raising money for those investments.
Yeah, so we have a different kind of small rice millers. I mean, most of them already experience accessing a government loan, and some of them already have also access to commercial loans through many scenario, even it's government program or it's like a individual initiative going to the banks. One of the situation that when they got the money, they manage the money itself. Their situation, they borrows the money, but it's not for millers. It's not for improving miller situation. They purchase some kind of consumer things, whether it's a vehicle or some urgent matter for school or not. So that's why with that kind of management, financial management, they have difficulty to pay the loan and even to pay loan and interest to the even government loan. They still need to pay. Not to mention the commercial loans. With that kind of traditional financial management.
This is very interesting for me. I mean, I can imagine some of these people. I mean, they are family businessmen, right? And I can imagine some of them, taking a loan and perhaps using it, or God forbid, misusing it as well. Are they amenable to listen to external advice? That's often the problem.
Wow, that's interesting question. Yes, for sure, Sanjoy. We're also having that kind of difficulty in the beginning. Yeah, they think, I'm doing what I'm doing, but this business is still here in 10 years already. I'm still can pay my kid to school by something. That's also one of the challenges, how to convince them switch from traditional management to more better business management practices. One thing that helped us also in the project is actually the impact of the climate change also. When they having difficulty to obtain a rice husk from the farmers, because some of the millers need to really stop all the operation because they have the money, but they don't have farmers who willing to deliver the rice husk to them, because some of them doesn't maintain relationship with the farmers. That's also one of the situation that happening. With that situation, when we talk about business collaboration, when we talk about electricity, now it more makes sense to them with this kind of situation when the rice fluctuation of the rice has, when it is really their situation, the rice husk is too high. The farmer cannot. If the millers purchase the rice husk, I think the cost to purchase the raw material is higher than the price of the rice itself. So this kind of situation also helping us convince them. Another way we use is we need to show them the result of this change. That's why we are fortunate that out of 150 small rice millers, in the beginning, one or two of them are willing to listen to our advice, and they start to switch to electricity, try to improve situation in the rice mill. And then after that, we can show this situation to other rice millers. And by doing that, other millers start willing to open with us, willing to listen to us. Another approach is because before they are work in individual, so they are not willing to share any information. Sometimes it's difficult for some rice millers. But with this kind of situation in the rice sector in Indonesia, we try to put them together, and good things that they are willing to share because they are feeling they are in the same situation. So they need to cooperate with each other, sharing information. So that's also the thing that we face in this low carbon rice project.
So, Angga, could you tell us about what the role of larger agricultural organizations is? Are they showing interest? Are you engaging with them?
Yeah, so for example, we work with Ricolto. It's an NGO, international NGO also. It's from Belgium. We can say they are NGO who have a step forward in the rice sectors in Indonesia, in Asia, in Africa. So we also work with them. And one of the result of this collaboration, the SRP National Working Group. So preferred by nature, local growers and agriculture working together so the national working group can happen. We also work with the provincial level food security unit in the provincial level. We also work specifically for companies like Olam. We so far not engaged in this low carbon rice project. But in the national working group, we also work with Syngenta. They are part of the national working group. They also, another is a Crop Life. They are also part of the national working group. And like I mentioned before, like at the moment, we try to approach the Horeca industry in terms of market access for this in this low carbon rice project.
What is Horeca?
Oh, a hotel, restaurant, and cafe. Another large organization companies that we talked recently is Danone in Indonesia. They have working on a mineral waters core business, so we call it Danone Aqua. They have this healthy rice program in Klaten, which is also one of the low carbon rice project area. So they also interesting how to see the rice health guidance compared with the SRP cultivation standard. So they are interesting to see the overlay with the healthy rice guidance and SRP cultivation standards. And they are willing, if anything that can try adopt in the SRP cultivation standards.
We've come to the end of the podcast, Angga. It's been very interesting talking to you because we learned a new thing today. Do you have any questions for your hosts?
Yes, Sanjoy and Jaideep, my question is, do you have any advice or maybe you can share any success story on how to convince these private sectors or companies to switch to more sustainable products?
So I can go first, Angga. This is a good challenge for someone who's a marketing professor because this is a marketing question. And if you think about large companies or any companies for that matter, their focus is very much on their customers and what their customers want and how they can differentiate their offering to their customers from their competitors. So the key here would be to find a large company, ideally, one of a global company that would have an incentive, a market-based incentive to adopt such a kind of sustainable rice, including obviously with the certification to brand it under their logo and their brand. Maybe they would create a sub-brand and then to let the kind of machinery of these large organizations take over because they are very efficient machinery. So the key would be to get them to adopt it for some of the branding benefits that they may have given who their target market is and who their competitors are.
I'll tell you what we are learning from this series. For example, we had a guest from Komako, an organization in Zambia. And obviously, Zambia is a very different country from Indonesia. But this particular organization in Zambia is actually creating a demand for the products in the local urban markets of Zambia, which is Lusaka, the type of products that farmers can produce, which also help them regenerate their soil. So I think coming at it from the market and the demand is perhaps the thing that we are learning in this podcast.
Thank you, Jaideep and Sanjoy.
Okay, and if people want to get in touch with you, how should they?
Yes, you can contact me through my email is amy@pbn.org. And you can also search me on LinkedIn. Just type it Angga Maulana Yusuf. And also please follow the project social media at Low Carbon Rice on Instagram and or Facebook to get updates on this project and send us a message through that platform.
With that, thank you very much, Angga.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sanjoy.